On August 29th, 2016, Mark and Jacoba Tromp, along with their three adult children, got into the family car and began a trip northward. It seemed that the family of five were headed out for an off the grid road trip, but that road trip ended with a police investigation and two of the family members being admitted into psychiatric care. Good evening and welcome to episode 115 of Mystery, Murder, and Mayhem. And before I go any further, I do want to apologize for being absent for a couple of weeks because Nick's sitting beside me and making me laugh, but because I messed up at the beginning and I've had to do this three times. But anyway, um, we had a lot of sickness in the house. I had COVID at one time, and then my surgery has been rescheduled, and I'm finally going to have scheduled our surgery this coming Monday. But anyway, sounds like I'm still sick, but I'm not. It's just, get that little tickle in your throat. But anyway, so let's get back to tonight's episode. Now, the Trump family, and I'm not saying Trump like Donald Trump. I'm saying Tromp, Tromp. Their family left for what most thought was, just your average road trip. But what happened after the family of five left their driveway is a mystery, and it remains a mystery to this day because the family doesn't want to talk about it. But it held Australia and much of the world in a bewildered state. So it was the dad, 51-year-old Mark, the mom, 53-year-old Jacoba, and their kids, 29-year-old Rihanna, 25-year-old Mitchell, and 22-year-old Ella, that left the family farm that day in August. But when the police started an investigation after they had been missing, it was more like they had fled, as in a hurry, and they were in a hurry, just leaving the stuff behind. I mean, there was stuff that they left behind that investigators found that kind of blew their mind because it was like credit cards and cell phones and even their passports. All of that had been left behind. And it was like they didn't want to leave a trail so that they could be found. But why? Now, according to local media, both Mark and Jacoba had been suffering from stress and paranoia, and according to those reports, at least one of them had become convinced that someone was out to kill them and take their money. The Tromps had a very successful land moving business and a red currant farm, so they were somewhat well off. Now, apparently, their son Mitchell hadn't bought into that conspiracy because when he left with his family, he was the only one of any of them who took his cell phone with him. And you may, ask why would he even leave with them if he wasn't convinced someone was out to get them. But he explained that in an interview by saying that he went with them to make sure that everybody else would be safe. But somewhere along the way, his parents had become hard to put up with because they had become more and more delusional. And then they found out that Mitchell had brought his phone along with him. And this was about 18, almost 19 miles into the trip. But when they found that out, they made him throw his phone out the car window. And they were 100% sure it was being used to track them down. Well, the following day, when they reached Bathurst, Mitchell decided to leave his family. Now, the four remaining family members continued on their journey and stopped at a popular tourist stop called Genelon Falls. I'm not sure that I pronounced that right, but anyway, or it was caves, Genelon Caves. And it was there that Rihanna and Ella also decided to leave the family. And they left the family by stealing a car. And I'm sure that they knew it was wrong, but they felt that they just had to get away from their family. And after they stole the car, they drove to the nearby town of Goulburn. And it was there that they reported their parents missing to the police. Well, after they reported their parents missing, it wasn't long before the story made its rounds in the local media. All of Australia was talking about it. And they just couldn't understand how a family could become so, separated from each other and so lost. And to make it even more curious was that this had taken place in a somewhat suburban area and not out in the Australian outback. And they had been close to like these big cities for most of their trip. Now, once Ella and Rihanna left, or reached Goulburn, they decided to part ways. And Ella told Rihanna that she wanted to go back home and she wanted to feed her horses. And when she arrived on that farm that Tuesday night, she found the police there, and Mitchell would arrive the following day. So Ella and Mitchell were there for, mentally they were okay for the most part. But the same couldn't be said for Rihanna. Now, after she had parted ways with Ella, she got into the back of a utility vehicle, and I should probably say that she had stowed away in the vehicle without the driver's knowledge. But when the driver found out that she was there, an hour had passed, and poor Rihanna was in this somewhat catatonic state. And she told the driver she had no idea where she was, nor did she know her own name. And later she was taken to the Goulburn Hospital, where she was put into the psychiatric unit. And she never faced charges over stealing the vehicle because of mental health reasons, but Ella did face charges. So that leaves the parents, Mark and Jacoba. The media was really taken off with the story in hopes that they could be found, and a huge search was launched for them. After they had left the Gentleman Caves, they drove back towards Melbourne, and then the following day they drove toward Wangaratta. And it was in Wangaratta that they became separated. And from there, Jacoba traveled north, but it's unknown exactly how she did the traveling. But she was found the following day in the town of Yass. And when she was found, she was wandering around in a very irritated mood. She was first taken to a nearby hospital and then later moved to the hospital in Goulburn to be with Rihanna, and they both continued to receive mental health care. Now, Mark had stayed in Wangaratta, and after being seen closely tailgating a young couple who were out playing Pokemon Go, he was seen fleeing from the vehicle that he had been traveling in and was found the following Saturday on the side of the road, still in Wangaratta. Now, after he was found, he was questioned by the police and received a mental health evaluation. After that, he was released into the custody of his brother. Now, later, he released a statement that said that he apologized for the, quote, hurt and concern caused by these events, end quote. Now, police have described these events as one of the most bizarre cases that they've seen in 30 years, and they also don't believe that anyone was really threatening the family. It basically came down to a meltdown, and even Ella and Mitchell have a hard time explaining just what really happened. Now, some believe that it could be explained by the French term folie à deux, which means madness of two, and it's a rare psychological condition that almost always occurs in close-knit families, and this family does sound like they were pretty close-knit. The condition was named after a 19th century couple who suddenly started displaying paranoia and delusional behavior, much like the Tromps. I mean, this was a normal, hard-working Australian family who had two successful businesses, and one day, things just went south. There was never any evidence of drug use. They weren't in a cult or any other odd religious organization. And it just appears that there was this mental breakdown that had been caused by paranoia. And each person's paranoia built off of the other person's paranoia. Now again, it points back to folie à deux. When Mitchell and Ella talked to the press, they said that nothing like this had ever happened in the family before. And once everything settled down, they were all back to working on the farm. The charges against Ella were eventually dropped, and everyone seems to be healthy and doing well now. Now, is that not one of the most bizarre things you've ever heard? And honestly, I had not even heard about this until, you know how things just show up on your Facebook feed and you're like, ooh, what's that? When you start looking. And that's how I found out about this. I can't believe I'd never heard of this story before. But I'm really glad that everyone is okay now, and I hope they continue to be happy and healthy. But you've got to wonder how their mental health really, truly is. Now, I know this was a short episode, but I do remember some of y'all telling me on social media that you enjoy the shorter one so you can listen on your daily commute. So this one is for y'all. Y'all come back next week for an all new episode, and be sure to check out the links in the episode description, especially the TikTok one. And you don't want to miss out on the drama that goes on there in the comments. Y'all have a good night.